When aliens requested humans for help, the entire fleet deployed. Part 1. The emergency signal came through at 0400 hours, waking every communications officer on Earth's orbital stations. It was a Priority 1 distress call, coded with Galactic Council emergency protocols. Ambassador Hyjin was pulled from her sleep. By 3 different alerts on her personal device, she arrived at the council chamber within an hour, her diplomatic uniform hastily pressed. The holographic displays showed devastation. Colony worlds burning. Millions of civilians fleeing in evacuation ships. The attacks were systematic, brutal, and efficient. The Varani representative stood at the center of the chamber. His crystalline body reflected the emergency lighting in fractured patterns. His name was Velth, and Hyjin had worked with him for 5 years on trade agreements. She had never seen fear in his species before. Today his entire form trembled. 3 colonies gone, Velth said, his translated voice breaking. 2 more under attack right now. The Chromoth swarm is destroying everything. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They just consume. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They represented 20 different species, each with their own military forces. Each with their own interests. The Althany representative spoke first. We can commit 15 warships to the defense effort. They will arrive in the Varani system within 6 days. 6 days. Hyjin watched the tactical displays. In 6 days, 2 more colonies would be ashed. Another representative offered 12 ships. Another promised aid packages and medical supplies. The numbers added up to perhaps 80 vessels total. Against a Chromoth force that intelligence estimated at over 200 warships, Velth's form seemed to dim. "Thank you," he said quietly. "We appreciate any help." Then he turned to Hyjin. The entire council chamber fell silent. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 30 years. In that time, they had traded, negotiated, shared scientific knowledge. But Earth had never committed military forces to any council conflict. Humans kept their fleet numbers classified. They participated in defense meetings but revealed nothing concrete about their capabilities. "Ambassador Hyjin," Velth said, "does Earth have any resources to spare?" She looked at the displays again. Civilian transports exploding. Children's evacuation centers being targeted. The Chromath didn't care about mercy or honor. They saw other species as resources to be harvested. "Give me the coordinates," Hyjin said. "All of them. Every colony, every outpost, every evacuation route." The council members glanced at each other. Was Earth sending observers? Intelligence officers? Maybe a small diplomatic mission? Hyjin activated her direct communication link to Earth Command. Admiral Taeyong's face appeared on the screen. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen 3 wars. He stood on the bridge of the EDS Indomitable, Earth's flagship. "Ambassador," he said simply. "Admiral, the Varani colonies are under attack. The Chromoth swarm. They need immediate military assistance." "Casualties?" "Millions already. More coming." Admiral Taeyong nodded once. "Send the coordinates to Fleet Command." Behind him, through the viewport, Hyjin could see movement. Ships were already breaking orbit. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. The massive forms of battleships, the sleek profiles of destroyers, the bulk of carrier vessels. "Admiral," Hyjin said carefully, "how many ships are you deploying?" For the first time in her career, she saw him smile. It wasn't a happy expression. "All of them," he said. The council chamber exploded into noise. Representatives stood from their seats, shouting questions. Their translators created a chaos of overlapping voices. "Admiral." Taeyong's image expanded to fill the main chamber display. Behind him, the view shifted to show the full assembly area. Ships stretched as far as the sensors could track. Battleships the size of small cities. Carrier groups with fighter screens already launching. Destroyer squadrons moving into formation with mathematical precision. "The human fleet is deploying to Varani space," Admiral Taeyong announced. "We will arrive in 42 hours. All Chromoth forces in the affected systems will be engaged and neutralized. Civilian protection is priority one. The tactical officer on the council's main screen tried to count the vessels. He gave up after reaching 500. The fleet kept growing as more ships emerged from lunar bases, orbital stations, and the dark side of Mars. How many? Someone whispered. A junior analyst ran the sensor data. Over 3,000 capital ships, sir. Not counting support vessels, fighters, and logistics craft. 3,000. The entire Galactic Council combined had perhaps 4,000 warships total, spread across their territories. Humanity had 3,000 just for this deployment. The Alphany representative found his voice first. This is your entire military? No, said a new voice. Captain Ji-woo appeared on a secondary screen. She stood on the bridge of a destroyer, younger than the admiral, but with the same calm confidence. This is just our rapid response fleet. We have 3 more defensive fleets protecting Earth and our colonies. The silence that followed could have swallowed stars. Velth approached Hyjin's station. I don't understand. Why do humans have so many warships? Your people have been at peace for decades. Hyjin met his crystalline eyes. We've been at peace with each other for decades. But we remember every war we fought before that. Every time we weren't strong enough to protect the innocent. Every time we watched people die because we couldn't help. We built this fleet so that would never happen again. But the cost, Velth said. The resources required ... Is worth it? Hyjin interrupted gently. Every single ship is worth it if it means answering when someone asks for help. On the main display, the human fleet completed its assembly. The formation was beautiful in a terrible way. Every ship in perfect position, every squadron ready, every weapon system armed. Admiral Taeyong stood with his hands behind his back, watching his fleet prepare to jump. All ships report ready, sir, his communications officer said. Very good. Navigation, engage jump drives on my mark. He paused, looking at something off-screen. Probably the coordinates of the Varani colonies. The places where millions of people were dying right now. Mark, space tore open in 3,000 places at once. The human fleet vanished, leaving only the fading light of jump signatures. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, the Alphany representative spoke again. What have we allowed into our council? Hyjin gathered her documents and prepared to leave. She stopped at the chamber entrance and looked back. You've allied with a species that takes promises seriously, she said. The Varani asked for help, so we sent everything. She left them sitting in the dim chamber, staring at empty space where the largest military fleet in galactic history had just been, on the edge of Varani space. The Chromoth swarm continued their attack, unaware that the humans were coming. Unaware that they had made a fatal mistake when they attacked innocent people, unaware that in 42 hours, they would learn what humanity meant by the phrase total war. When aliens requested humans for help, the entire fleet, deployed Part 2, the Chromoth swarm, detected the approaching jump signatures 6 minutes before the human fleet arrived. Their sensors showed impossible readings. The computer systems flagged the data as corrupted. No species deployed this many ships at once. It had to be an error. Commander Vex, leading the Chromoth attack fleet, dismissed the warnings. His 200 warships continued stripping resources from the Varani colony world below. The atmosphere processors were already half dismantled. In another day, they would move to the next colony. Then space tore open and 3,000 human warships emerged from jump space. Vex stared at his sensors. Every screen showed the same thing. Ships everywhere. They filled the entire system with their presence. His targeting computer couldn't track them all at once. This is impossible, his tactical officer whispered. The human fleet spread out in a pattern Vex had never seen before. Instead of forming a battle line or defensive sphere, each ship moved independently. But their movements were coordinated with perfect precision. It looked less like a military formation and more like a living organism. Admiral Taeyong stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching his tactical displays. Each icon represented a ship under his command. Each ship carried hundreds of crew members, people who trusted him to use their lives wisely. All ships have arrived successfully, Admiral, his second-in-command reported. Commander Sung-ho was a veteran of Earth's last major conflict. He understood the weight of command. "Scan for civilian populations," Tae-young ordered. "I want evacuation corridors marked before we engage." Captain Ji-woo worked at the tactical station. Her fingers moved across the holographic controls. "Marking now, sir. 3 evacuation routes clear. Varani transports are still in the system. If we engage here and here," she highlighted 2 areas, "we can protect their escape path." "Good. Communications, open a channel to all Chromoth vessels." The channel opened. Admiral Tae-young's face appeared on every Chromoth ship's screen. "Chromoth forces. This is Admiral Tae-young of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have attacked innocent civilians and threatened peaceful colonies. You will power down your weapons and withdraw immediately." Commander Vex recovered from his shock. Humans were new to the Council, young, inexperienced. He transmitted his response. "Human fleet, you are outnumbered and outmatched. Retreat now or be consumed like all others who—" "No," Admiral Tae-young interrupted. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." He closed the channel and turned to Commander Sung-ho. "Execute rescue protocol. Eliminate all hostile vessels. Protect civilian populations at all costs." The human fleet moved. On the Chromoth flagship, Vex watched as the human ships flowed around his formation like water. They weren't attacking in waves. They weren't forming up for a traditional engagement. Instead, they surrounded his entire fleet while simultaneously creating safe corridors for the Varani evacuation. "Ships, they're trying to trap us," his tactical officer said. "Then we break." Through their weakest point, Vex decided. He identified a section where only 30 human ships blocked their escape route. His fleet was 200 strong. 30 ships would be easy to destroy. He ordered the attack. The 30 human ships didn't retreat. They accelerated forward directly at the Chromoth formation. Their weapons fired in synchronized patterns. Not random shooting, but calculated strikes that hit the same targets repeatedly. On the indomitable, Lieutenant Dae-hyun managed the weapon systems. He had a dark sense of humor that helped during battle. Target their engines first? Dead ships can't shoot back. That's a cheerful thought, his assistant said. "I'm a cheerful person." The battle lasted 17 minutes. The Chromoth swarm fought with the tactics that had won them 100 conflicts. They relied on superior numbers, heavy armor, and aggressive assault patterns. They expected their enemies to retreat when damaged. To preserve their ships and crew, the humans did neither. When a human destroyer took critical damage, it didn't pull back for repairs. It accelerated forward and rammed the nearest Chromoth cruiser. Both ships exploded, but the explosion cleared a path for 3 more human vessels to advance. When a human battleship lost its shields, it moved to point-blank range with Chromoth vessels. At that distance, both ships took damage, but human ships had better armor. They survived. The Chromoth ships didn't. When Chromoth fighters tried to overwhelm human carriers, automated drones launched by the thousands. Small, cheap, and disposable. They swarmed the enemy fighters in suicidal attacks that cleared the space around the carriers. Commander Vex watched his fleet disappear from the tactical display. Ship after ship went dark. The humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They didn't value their ships above their mission. They didn't retreat when damaged. They accepted casualties that would have broken any other species' morale. "Fall back," he ordered. "All ships retreat." But there was nowhere to retreat to. The human fleet had surrounded them completely. Every escape route was blocked. Every attempt to break through met with overwhelming firepower. The last Chromoth ship exploded 14 minutes into the battle. Commander Vex's flagship lasted another 3 minutes before human torpedoes breached the hull. He died still not understanding how he had lost. Admiral Tae-young watched the tactical display clear of enemy signals. Damage report. 12 ships destroyed, Commander Sung-ho reported. 43 with various levels of damage. Casualty reports still coming in. 12 ships. Over 1,000 crew members. Tae-young felt the weight of each death. But the Varani evacuation transports were safe. 3 colony worlds worth of civilians were escaping. Deploy rescue teams to all damaged vessels. Get medical ships to the worst casualties. And send support teams to help the Varani evacuation. Captain Jiwoo coordinated the rescue operations. Her crew worked for 72 hours straight. They pulled Varani survivors from damaged stations. They provided food and medical supplies to refugee ships. They escorted civilian transports to safe systems. On one of the evacuation ships, a young Varani child asked her mother a question. Why did the humans come? Her mother held her close. Because we asked for help. But why did they send so many ships? The mother had no answer. She looked out the viewport at the massive human fleet. Ships as far as she could see. All of them here to protect people they had never met. On Earth, the Galactic Council watched recordings of the battle. The footage showed human ships fighting with absolute determination. No hesitation. No retreat. No surrender. They lost 12 ships, the Alphany representative said. And they didn't even slow down? Ambassador Haijin watched the same footage. She had seen humanity's capacity for violence before. Earth's history was full of it. Wars that lasted decades. Conflicts that killed millions. Humanity had always been good at war. You wanted to know why we have so many warships, she said to the council. This is why. Because when we make a promise, we keep it. And we promised to help the Varani. An elderly council member, one who had served for over a century, spoke quietly. What kind of species builds a military like this? Haijin met his eyes. The kind that's been at war with itself for 10,000 years. We know what violence costs. We know what it means to lose everything. That's why we built this fleet. So we'd never be helpless again. And so we could help others who are. The council chamber fell silent. In the Chromath home systems, the Hive Command received reports of the battle. Total defeat. Complete annihilation. Not a single ship survived. They transmitted a message to human space. It was meant to be threatening. A promise of total war. Revenge for the attack on their forces. Admiral Taeyong received the message aboard the Indomitable. He read it twice. Then he called his navigation officer. Plot a course to the Chromath home systems. Sir? The officer said, surprised. They've invited us to war. It would be rude not to accept. The human fleet turned away from the Varani colonies. The civilians were safe now. The immediate threat was over. A normal military would return home. Declare victory. Hold parades. The human fleet went hunting instead. When aliens requested humans for help, the entire fleet deployed. Part 3, the Galactic Council emergency session began 3 hours after the human fleet changed course. Ambassador Haijin stood before the assembled representatives, knowing exactly what they would say. You must stop this advance immediately, the Alphany representative demanded. The Chromath have been defeated. The Varani are safe. This continued aggression violates council protocols. Haijin pulled up the tactical displays. The Chromath Hive Command sent us a message. They promised total war against humanity. They're currently fortifying 17 star systems with everything they have left. If we stop now, they'll rebuild and attack again. Maybe not the Varani next time. Maybe someone else. Then we negotiate, another representative said. The council has diplomats who specialize in... The Chromath don't negotiate, Haijin interrupted. They consume. You've all read the reports. 300 species extinct because the Chromath swarm arrived and decided those worlds had resources worth taking. How many more have to die before we admit that some threats can't be reasoned with? The council members shifted uncomfortably. They didn't like violence. Their species had evolved beyond such things. War was primitive, barbaric. Except when someone was trying to kill you. How many systems will you attack? Velth asked quietly. The Varani representative looked stronger now. His people were safe. But he understood the cost of that safety. All 17 of their fortified positions, Haijin said. Simultaneously. That's impossible, the Althany representative said. No military can coordinate 17 simultaneous attacks across that much space. Humanity can, Hygen replied. We've been doing it for centuries. We call it multi-theater warfare. She didn't mention that humanity learned this strategy fighting themselves. That Earth's nations had once waged war across entire continents at the same time. That coordination and logistics were lessons written in human blood. Across thousands of years, the Council wanted to believe war was simple. One army meets another. They fight. Someone wins. Someone loses. Everyone goes home. Humanity knew war was complicated. It was supply lines and logistics, communication networks and intelligence gathering, fighting in 10 places at once while keeping every unit supplied and coordinated. It was exhausting and brutal, and humans were very, very good at it. Admiral Taeyong divided his fleet into 7 battle groups. Each group had its own target systems. Each commander had complete tactical authority. They would attack simultaneously. Preventing the Chromoth from reinforcing any single position, Captain Ji-woo now commanded Battle Group 3. Her flagship was still the Indomitable, patched and repaired after the first battle. Chief Engineer Min Young had kept the ship running through damage that should have destroyed it. We're assigned to Krothos Prime, Min Young reported. It's their most heavily defended system. 300 orbital defense platforms. Over 400 ships. They really don't want us there. Good, Ga-woo said. That means it's important. Lieutenant Dae-hyun checked his weapon systems. We're outnumbered 3-1, Captain. Only 3-1? I was hoping for a challenge. Dae-hyun grinned. Dark humor helped. It always did. The 7 battle groups jumped simultaneously. Across 17 Chromoth systems, human fleets emerged and immediately engaged. There was no warning. No demands for surrender. The Chromoth had promised total war. Humanity delivered it. At Krothos Prime, Captain Ji-woo brought her battle group in fast. The orbital defense platforms opened fire immediately. Energy beams that could cut through a battleship's armor. Missiles that tracked targets across thousands of kilometers. Shields at 60%, her defensive officer reported. 50%? 40%? Deploy countermeasure drones. Return fire on the closest platforms. All ships advance in staggered formation. The battle was chaos. Weapons fire from every direction. Ships exploding. Debris filling the space. The Indomitable shook from repeated impacts. We've lost power to decks 7 through 10, Min Young reported from engineering. Life support is failing in 3 sections. Main reactor is running at 120% capacity. Can you keep us flying? Define flying, Min Young said. If you mean moving through space while shooting things, yes. If you mean safely and according to regulations, absolutely not. First option is fine. The Indomitable pressed forward. Her armor was scarred. Her shields were failing. Half her weapon systems were offline. But she kept firing. Lieutenant Dae-hyun switched to manual targeting when the computers crashed. He aimed the main cannons using visual tracking and instinct. It was primitive, inefficient. It worked. One by one, the orbital platforms went dark. The Chromoth defense fleet tried to surround the human ships. But human destroyers broke formation and attacked independently. They sacrificed themselves to create openings. They rammed larger vessels when ammunition ran out. They fought with the desperate determination of a species that understood survival meant accepting horrible costs. Dr. Sujin worked in the medical bay as casualties flooded in, burned, broken, bleeding. She treated everyone who came through her doors, human and Chromoth alike. You're wasting supplies on the enemy, someone said. They're wounded, she replied. That makes them patients. She had chosen to be a doctor because she believed in saving lives. But she also understood that her ability to heal depended on soldiers willing to fight. The contradiction troubled her. How do you heal in a profession defined by violence? She didn't have an answer. She just kept working. The battle for Krothos Prime lasted 18 hours. When it ended, 70 human ships were destroyed or too damaged to continue. Over 6,000 crew members were dead. But the system was secured. Captain Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the damage reports. Her ship was barely functional. Her crew was exhausted, and they still had 3 more systems to attack. Status of the other battle groups? She asked. Commander Seung-ho transmitted from his flagship. Groups 1 through 6 report successful operations. Group 4 took heavy losses but completed their objectives. We're regrouping for the final push. The final push. The Chromoth homeworld. Back on Earth, public opinion was divided. Some people celebrated the victories. Others questioned the cost. Was it worth losing thousands of lives to help aliens most humans had never met? Ambassador Haijin addressed Earth's parliament directly. She appeared via hologram, standing in the council chamber while her home government debated. "We're not fighting for the Varani," she said. "We're fighting for the principle that innocent people deserve protection. If we stop now, if we say that human lives are worth more than alien lives, then we tell the galaxy that our promises mean nothing. That we only help when it's convenient." A parliament member interrupted. "But these are Varani colonies, not human ones. Why should our sons and daughters die for them?" "Because someday," Haijin said quietly, "it might be our colonies under attack. And when that day comes, we'll want someone to help us. We'll want someone who keeps their promises." The debate continued, but the fleet kept advancing. Admiral Tae-young received a private message from Commander Seung-ho. They had served together for 30 years. They understood each other's thoughts without speaking. "Are we becoming the monsters we're trying to stop?" Seung-ho asked. Tae-young looked at the tactical displays. At the ship, icons representing thousands of crew members under his command. At the casualty reports that grew with each battle. "Maybe," he admitted. "But the Varani are safe. The Chromoth can't threaten anyone else. If we have to carry the weight of this violence, then we carry it. So others don't have to. That's a hell of a burden." "Yes," Tae-young agreed. "But someone has to bear it." The human fleet assembled at the edge of Chromoth home system. This was the final battle. Everything the Chromoth had left was here. Over 1,000 warships. Orbital fortresses. Planetary defense grids. It was their last stand. Admiral Tae-young transmitted a message to all human ships. "No encrypted channels?" The Chromoth could hear it too. "We came to the Varani's aid because they asked for help. We continued this war because the Chromoth promised to destroy us. Now we're here at their home. And I want every person, human and Chromoth, to understand what happens next. We will accept surrender. We will accept peace. But if they force us to fight, we will finish this completely." He gave them 6 hours to respond. The Chromoth Hive Command spent those 6 hours preparing for battle. They didn't believe the humans would actually attack a homeworld. No civilized species would do such a thing. They didn't understand that humanity had attacked its own home world. Multiple times throughout history. Humans knew exactly how far they would go to win. When the 6 hours ended, Admiral Tae-young gave the order, "All ships, attack." The fleet advanced toward the Chromoth home world, and the galaxy watched to see what would happen when humanity's promise to protect the innocent met with the necessity of total war. When aliens requested humans for help, the entire fleet deployed. Part 4. The assault on the Chromoth home system began at dawn, by Earth's measurement of time. Admiral Tae-young watched the tactical displays as 3,000 ships entered their final battle positions. He had been awake for 36 hours straight. His command staff urged him to rest. He refused. Every ship on those displays represented people he had sent into danger. He would watch every second of what came next. The Chromoth defense network opened fire the moment human ships entered range. Space filled with weapons fire. Energy beams powerful enough to cut through mountains. Missiles that could track a target across an entire star system. Orbital mines that detonated in devastating patterns. The human fleet pushed through it all. "We're taking heavy casualties on the western flank," Commander Seung-ho reported. 6 ships destroyed in the first minute. 12 more heavily damaged. Tae-young studied the patterns. The Chromoth were focusing fire on specific entry points, creating kill zones that would destroy anything that tried to pass through. Pull back the western flank, he ordered. Redirect those forces to support the southern advance. We'll go around their strong points instead of through them. That will take 3 hours longer, sir, and save 300 lives. Do it, Captain Jewu commanded the Indomitable at the center of the formation. Her ship had been repaired as much as time allowed, but damage from Krothos Prime still showed. Armor plates welded together. Weapon systems running on backup power. Life support working at 70% capacity. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Chromoth Command, her communications officer said. They want to negotiate? After 6 hours of silence, they suddenly want to talk? Lieutenant Daehyun said. That's convenient. It's a stalling tactic, Jewu agreed. They're hoping reinforcements will arrive. What ships do we have on long-range sensors? Nothing yet, Captain. But if they called for help, support could arrive within hours. Jewu made her decision. Forward the transmission to Admiral Tae-young. We continue the assault. The battle raged on. Human ships fought with the same desperate intensity they had shown in every previous engagement. But this time, the Chromoth were defending their homeworld. They fought with equal desperation. In the medical bay, Dr. Soo-jin worked through an endless stream of wounded. The corridors outside her facility were filled with injured crew members waiting for treatment. She had 23 beds. She needed 300. We're running low on medical supplies, her assistant reported. At this rate, we'll be out in 4 hours. Contact the supply ships. Have them prioritize medical deliveries. Supply ships are taking casualties too, Doctor. They're trying. Soo-jin finished treating a young ensign with severe burns. He couldn't have been more than 20 years old. He thanked her with tears in his eyes, then insisted on returning to his post despite the pain. She wanted to scream, to demand that someone explain why children were dying in a war that started because humanity tried to help people. But she didn't have time for philosophy. More wounded were arriving every minute. Private Jae-sung led his Marine unit in a boarding action against a Chromoth command station. His squad of 12 soldiers fought through corridors filled with enemy troops. They lost 3 people taking the first deck. 2 more on the second level, but they completed their mission. The command station went offline, disrupting Chromoth coordination across an entire sector. Jae-sung pulled his surviving squad members back to their transport ship. 7 soldiers had entered the station. 4 returned. They didn't celebrate their victory. They just moved to the next objective on the bridge of the Indomitable. Chief Engineer Min-young monitored her systems with growing concern. Captain, the main reactor is becoming unstable. We're running too hot for too long. How long can you keep it stable? Honestly? It should have exploded 2 hours ago. I'm performing what technical manuals would call miracles and common sense would call insanity. Can you give me 4 more hours? Min-young looked at her reactor displays. At the temperature readings that were far beyond safety limits. At the stress indicators showing metal fatigue in critical components. I can give you 4 hours, she said. But if this reactor goes, it takes the entire ship with it. Understood. Do your best. Min-young returned to engineering and pushed her systems even harder. She had 3 assistant engineers helping her. They all knew the risks. They worked anyway. The battle continued. Hours passed. Ships exploded. People died. The human fleet kept advancing. Then Commander Sung-ho made his decision. His flagship, the Dauntless, led a battle group on the northern flank. They had been trying to breach the Chromoth orbital defenses for 3 hours without success. Every attack was repelled. Every advance was stopped. Meanwhile, the main fleet was taking continuous damage. Sung-ho looked at his tactical display, saw the pattern, understood what needed to happen. All ships, this is Commander Sung-ho. We're going to punch through those defenses. Follow the Dauntless. We'll create a corridor for the main fleet. His tactical officer understood immediately. Sir, that's a suicide run. will never survive passing through that fire. I know. That's why it will work. They won't expect anyone to be that stupid. He recorded messages to his crew's families. Brief recordings explaining that what came next was necessary. That their sacrifice would save thousands of other lives. That humanity needed them to do the impossible. Then he ordered the attack. The Dauntless and 7 other ships accelerated to maximum speed. They angled directly at the strongest point in the Chrometh defenses. Every weapon on those platforms fired at them. It was like flying into a star. The Dauntless's shields failed within seconds. Her armor began to melt. Compartments explosively decompressed. Over half her crew died in the first minute. Sung Ho stayed at his post. His ship was dying around him. But they were almost through. Keep going, he ordered. Just a few more seconds. The Dauntless breached the defense line and exploded. Her reactor detonated with the force of a small sun. The explosion destroyed 3 orbital platforms and created a gap in the defenses. 7 ships had entered the run. 2 survived to reach the other side. But the corridor was open. Admiral Tae-young watched it happen. Watched his oldest friend sacrifice himself and 700 crew members to create an opening. He didn't have time to grieve. He had to use what Sung Ho had bought with his life. All ships, advance through the corridor. Battle group commanders, exploit the gap and push for the inner system. The human fleet poured through. They took casualties. Many casualties. But they reached the inner system where the Chrometh homeworld waited. Captain Ji-woo led the Indomitable through the gap. Debris from the Dauntless's explosion filled the space. She saw pieces of ships, badas, the cost of victory measured in wreckage and death. Target the planetary defense grid, she ordered. We end this now. The Chrometh Hive Command finally understood they had lost. Their defenses were broken. Their fleet was destroyed. The human ships were approaching their homeworld with weapons armed. They transmitted a surrender. Admiral Tae-young received the message. He stood alone on the bridge observation deck, looking at the planet below. Billions of Chrometh lived there. Civilians who had no say in their government's decision to attack the Varani. He could destroy them all. His fleet had the firepower. Part of him, the part that had watched too many friends die, wanted to do it. Instead, he transmitted his terms: complete disarmament. Reparations to every species they had attacked. Council observers on all Chrometh worlds. A 20-year ban on military vessel construction. The Chrometh agreed to everything. The war was over. The human fleet began the long journey home. They left 400 ships behind. Over 80,000 crew members who would never see Earth again. The victory parade felt hollow when every ship returned with empty bunks and memorial services to conduct. Captain Ji-woo visited the memorial station where the names of the fallen were displayed in holographic light. She found Commander Sung Ho's name. Next to it, she placed his commendation for valor. She stood there for an hour, thinking about the cost of keeping promises. When aliens requested humans for help, the entire fleet deployed. Part 5-6 months after the war ended, Ambassador Hae-jin stood before the Galactic Council in a very different chamber. The atmosphere had changed. When she entered, representatives stood. Some offered gestures of respect according to their species' customs. Others simply watched her with careful eyes. Fear and respect looked similar from a distance. The Council recognizes Ambassador Hae-jin of Earth, the Council elder said. We understand you have the report on Chrometh compliance with the peace terms. Hae-jin activated the holographic display. The Chrometh have surrendered 98% of their military vessels. Council observers report full cooperation. Reparation payments have begun to all affected species. The Varani colonies are being rebuilt with Chrometh resources and labor. Velth, the Varani representative, stood. On behalf of my people, I must say that we never expected such complete compliance. The Chrometh are actually helping rebuild what they destroyed. Because they understand the alternative, the Althany representative said quietly. They've seen what happens when humanity declares war. Hae-jin didn't respond to that. She moved to the next item. 3 new species have petitioned to join the Council in the last 6 months. All 3 cited the defense of the Varani as proof that Council membership provides real security. It was true. Word of humanity's intervention had spread across the galaxy. Species that had remained neutral for centuries now wanted the protection that came with Council membership. Trade with Earth had increased 300%. Several governments had requested human military advisors, but not everyone was pleased. "We must discuss limitations on human fleet movements," a representative from a species called the Torvin said. "Your military capacity makes other members nervous. Perhaps restrictions on how many ships can deploy at once." "No," Hygiene said simply. "Excuse me? We will not accept restrictions on our ability to defend ourselves or others. If that concerns you, I understand. But humanity didn't build this fleet to threaten Council members. We built it to protect them." The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted humans more involved in Council security. Others wanted them less involved. Everyone had opinions about what humanity should do with its military. Hygiene listened patiently. Then she made humanity's position clear. "We're not going to be the Council's army. We're not going to be its police force. But when innocent people are in danger, when someone asks for help, we'll answer. That's our promise. Take it or leave it." The Council took it. They didn't have much choice. On Earth, Admiral Taeyong officially retired from active command. He was 64 years old and had spent 40 years in military service. He had earned his rest, but retirement didn't mean disappearing. He became Earth's chief military advisor to the Council. His job was to help humanity find balance, maintaining defensive capability, while not becoming a military culture that glorified war. It was harder than fighting the Chromith had. Captain Jiwoo received a new assignment. She would command a joint species task force, humanity's first peacekeeping mission. Her crew would include humans, Varani, and volunteers from 4 other species. The Indomitable underwent complete reconstruction. When the ship relaunched, it looked almost the same from outside. But inside, modifications had been made for different species. Quarters designed for crystalline Varani. Atmospheric controls for species that breathed different air mixtures. Common areas where different species could meet and work together. Chief Engineer Min Young trained alien engineers in human ship systems. It was challenging. Human technology was built with human assumptions. Other species thought differently, worked differently. They learned from each other. Dr. Sujin established the first interspecies medical protocols. Different species had different biology, different needs, different reactions to treatments. She worked with doctors from 6 other species to create medical standards that could help everyone. Lieutenant Dae Hyun, now promoted to commander, still handled weapon systems. He joked that at least now he had more interesting targets to shoot at if things went wrong. His Varani assistant didn't understand human humor. Dae Hyun was teaching him. Slowly. The memorial station at Thelas was completed 8 months after the war. It honored casualties from all species, human, Varani, and even Chromith warriors. Because death in war deserved respect, regardless of which side carried the weapons. Private Jae-sung, now a sergeant, served as honor guard at the dedication ceremony. He stood at attention while thousands of people passed through, each one stopping at names, each one remembering someone lost. Velf gave a speech at the ceremony. "The humans came when we asked for help. They sacrificed when we despaired. They fought battles we couldn't fight. And they did it not for territory or profit, but because they believed innocent people deserved protection. The Varani will never forget." Hyjin attended the ceremony. She watched the memorial holograms displaying names. So many names. Each one a person who would never go home. Each one a family that would always have an empty seat at their table. Was it worth it? She asked herself that question every day. 80,000 dead to save millions. How did you measure the value of lives like that? She didn't have an answer. She suspected no one did. Then a new crisis emerged. Distress signals came from the far edge of Council space. Colony worlds under attack. Unknown attackers using hit-and-run tactics. The council formed committees to study the problem. They debated response protocols. They wrote policy papers. Nothing happened. Commodore G. Wu received new orders. One word: investigate. The Indomitable departed with her multinational crew. They jumped to the affected systems and found something unexpected. Not an attacking military force, refugees, the species called themselves the Talvek. They were desperate, starving, their ships were falling apart. They had been raiding colonies not from aggression but from desperation. Dr. Su Jin led the first contact team. She met with Talvek leaders in their damaged flagship. They were afraid of her. Afraid of what humans might do after seeing the attacks on council colonies. "Why are you running?" she asked them. The Talvek commander was old. His people had no word for his age. He had seen too much, survived too long. "The Devourers," he said. "They came to our worlds. They consumed our star systems, turned everything into machines. We ran, we're still running. And they're still coming." Sujin returned to the Indomitable and briefed Commodore Ji Woo. "They're not attackers. They're victims. The colonies they raided were desperate actions by desperate people. They need help." Wu sent her report to the council. She included everything: the Talvik story, the threat they were fleeing, the danger that might be following them into council space. The council panicked. Several species proposed abandoning the outer territories, creating a defensive line around core systems, essentially sacrificing frontier worlds to buy time. Ambassador Haijin listened to the proposals with growing frustration. This was the Varani situation again. Innocence and danger. The council unwilling to act decisively. "We can't fight machines that consume entire star systems," the Torvan representative said. "We should focus on protecting what we can." "Running just means you die tired," Haijin said. "We've seen this before. If the Devourers are coming, they won't stop at the frontier. They'll keep advancing. Better to stop them now than wait until they're at our core worlds. What do you propose?" "What we always do. Find out where they are. Then the fleet deploys." But this time was different. This time other species stepped forward. The Varani, who had never built warships before, offered every armed vessel they had. The Althani committed their full fleet. 5 other species joined them. Even the Chromoth, seeking to prove they had changed, offered ships and information about Devour technology. It was the largest military coalition in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships from 12 different species. And at its center, commanding the entire force, was Admiral Taeyong. He hadn't wanted to return to command. His retirement had been peaceful, quiet, but when the council asked him to lead the combined fleet, he understood he didn't have a choice. Some responsibilities didn't end just because you wanted them to. Commodore Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the combined fleet assemble. Human ships mixed with alien vessels. A dozen different species working together, training together, preparing to fight together. Her tactical officer was Varani now, a crystalline being named Soren who had survived the Chromoth attack on his colony. He had joined the human military afterward, wanting to learn how to protect others the way humans had protected his people. "Captain, do you think we can win against the Devourers?" he asked. Jiwoo thought about Commander Sung-ho's sacrifice, about the 80,000 names on memorial walls, about every battle she had fought and every person she had lost. "I think," she said carefully, "that we're about to show these machines what happens when you threaten living beings. We don't fight for territory or profit. We fight for each other, and that makes us stronger than any machine." The combined fleet completed its preparation. On Earth, families gathered in streets and homes, watching broadcasts of the fleet departure. They prayed for their loved ones. They feared for the future, but they also felt something else: pride.